Hi there. Come right on in, friend. Hope you have time to grab a cup of tea and just sit with us for a few minutes. Maybe it's time for you to take a break. I've often thought about these countries that really do. I think the British, they stop and have tea, and some of their South American countries, a siesta. But not Americans. We go like this all the time. So take a little time and join us for Homekeepers today. And what we try to do is exactly the title of this program, and that's keep your home. Especially keep the people in the home, keep them strong and healthy spiritually, psychologically. Get a good education, want them to be healthy, want you to be financially fit. All of those things that really affect and can bless or be an irritant to a home. And so we're trying to help you here. And there's something in this nation and around the world that's going on right under our noses, and that's human trafficking. And after reading this book written by my guest today, and her name is Katariina Rosenblatt. That's a nice name. I like that, Katariina. Her experience in human trafficking from a very, very young age. And when I read this, I thought, Arthelene, this stuff's been under your nose all the time. It's all around us, where children and young people are in bondage, and they're kind of functioning and going forward with life, but it is demonic. It's diabolical. And she has written a book with, maybe you remember, Cecil Murphy, one of the fine guests we've had here. It's a very, very well-written book. And how through it all, just one sentence at a Billy Graham meeting stuck with her. She saw Billy say, and he kind of looked at her when she went forward. She's so young, said, "The Lord will never leave you nor forsake you." And from that point on, she went through some horrendous things, but it turned out to be true because she's well today, and she's got a ministry to those who are trapped in this horrible, horrible life. So I want you to meet Katariina, and I'm going to join Sister Stephanie over there, and oh my, this is one that's a combination of apples and caramel sauce. Don't need to say another word, I know that. And again, I want to offer you this book. We have a few left. Your Tongue Determines Your Destiny. This is a personal book you need to read. You need to take it personally, and you don't read it and say, oh, so-and-so needs to read this. Oh, my, that would be good for so-and-so. No, we all need to read this and just keep our face in the mirror on it. Your tongue determines your destiny. Remember all of the things that's said about the tongue in the scripture, and this book outlines them with a lot of really good information that every one of us should know and practice. So if you would like this book, we've got them for you ready to go out. They're up in the office, and they're $14.95, and that includes shipping and handling, which is huge these days. So if you use a credit card, it's 1-800-229-0059, or just write to me at Homekeepers, Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida, 33758. And I do believe if you really want to make yourself better, you'll read this book. This is a very personal book. And I've joined Stephanie over here. And don't we all need to read a book on the tongue?
Oh, yes. We all need to read a lot. I love reading.
So what are we fixing today?
Today we're making a moist caramel apple cake.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggested we just make the cake, take 2 spoons up to the office and eat it. Don't bake it. No. Okay, so.
There's something about these Granny Smith apples that when they hit the caramel is magic. Now I'm going to fix the caramel. You just buy the caramel candies, and the recipe tells you how many.
Yep.
And you put them in the microwave with a little bit of milk.
A little bit of milk. I have a yellow cake mix here, and I have 1 box of vanilla instant pudding. And then I have 4 eggs. I have a cup of water. You got it? I have a
Take
cup.
a little at a time.
Yep. Cup of water. I have 1/3 of a cup of milk and 1/3 of a cup of oil I'm going to put in here and just mix it all up.
And I'm going to spray a tube pen. I'm going to spray.
You're going to really spray that because
we'll tell you why.
Yes. We're nothing if not honest. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
That
cake is not sticking.
afraid it's going to jump out.
Yeah,
the pan.
that cake's not going to stick. So I'm just going to mix this up, and then I have 3 Granny Smith apples that Susan so nicely cut up for us in small little pieces, and I'm going to mix that in. Yum-y.
Now, is this caramel sauce supposed to be poured on while the cake's still hot?
No, it says to wait right before you serve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Give it just a little bit more.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Yummy, yummy, yummy.
Yum,
okay. While we're waiting, you know, people can always go to my fan club page on Facebook and join Stephanie's fan club.
And really, this girl will interact with you, and sometimes you put recipes on there, don't
Sometimes, yeah. And in fact, it's funny because, you know, just the other day we made some flavored butter.
Yeah.
And I put on there, oh, wait till you see what's coming, flavored butter. And somebody responded and said, that's funny because I just made maple bacon butter. And I said, okay, I want that recipe.
Oh my God.
Yes, my son loves bacon. I got him bacon flavored candy canes last year. That's how much he loves bacon. Yes. So I said, oh, I need that recipe because I need to make some for my son.
Bacon candy canes.
Bacon
okay, this
flavored.
This is good.
Okay, so I'm just gonna pour this in the bundt cake and bake it. What's it say? An hour?
Yeah, it's a little while.
Yeah, because you want the apples to cook.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna pour that in there, and then you're gonna bring that lovely bundt
we
cake
have
over.
A story to tell on this because this was in a bundt cake.
A what?
That looks. You can see it. It kind of looks like a mountain.
Like a flower.
If you like make a chocolate cake and sprinkle a little powdered sugar on it, looks like a mountain with snow on it. But our good friend Susan, God love her, because she said this thing came out in about 10 pieces.
She called me. She said, only half of it came out of the pan.
But look, she put it back together.
Yeah. Well, let's pour the caramel on.
Oh, okay.
That's like the best part.
Or you could put it on piece by piece. There you go. It's a wonderful, wonderful comment. Somebody's going to get a treat there. There's another one. Didn't quite melt.
Well,
whoever gets those.
Yeah, that's the special little added bonus.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness.
So,
get it all.
And our colleague who absolutely loved anything apple.
We're going to take a picture and we're going to text it to him because he's not here anymore. So shame on him.
I'm so sorry. Well, I mean, I cut a very small piece because we have to deal in small portions, right?
Sure.
That's really.
Is it good? Did you try it?
Come on.
Come on.
We don't need to try this.
No.
Did you get a little caramel there? Well.
Yes. Yes.
We don't need to sell this. They know.
You want this recipe, I promise.
Have you ever had a Mrs. Prindle's apple?
No.
They're very expensive. My sister's.
Well, that right there tells you I haven't.
Yeah, no, of course you haven't. Sent one from California, and they are perfect apples.
Oh, yes, the big, and they're covered.
Chocolate and caramel and pecans.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's this in a cake, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar because it's just such a good combination.
Yes.
So what do we call this?
We call this moist apple cake.
Yeah,
moist
we'll know.
Apple caramel cake.
Yeah, if you want it, contact us.
Yes.
And be sure you get on her Facebook page because
Stephanie's Fan Club.
She gets happy when you do, and she pouts when we don't
pout.
Get a few.
Not about that. No.
So if you want this, email us, okay? We'll email it right back. Or if you don't have a computer, just write to us. That address is coming up. No charge. We'll be glad to get it out to you. And boy, people do respond to these, and we're glad to give them to you. Stay with me and meet my new guest.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, just write to the address on your screen, or you can email your request to arthelene@rippy.org.
Well, I have mentioned before, I feel that I am basically a facilitator and so honored to bring other ministries to you that we would never know about. And God wants you to know about them. And I do believe He wants you to know about Katariina Rosenblatt, who has written this book, Stolen. And I'm telling you, it's a page turner. If you will get this book, it'll be very hard for you to lay it down. And Katarina, I want to welcome you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Arthelene.
Thanks for your ministry and for your book, for your life. It kind of starts out that you really began life with a very abusive father, and your mother proved over and over that she loved you, but like a lot of ladies, they don't know what to do sometimes. They don't really take control of a situation, and so that's the way your life started out.
Yes, my mom had left my abusive father again, and we wound up at a hotel in Miami Beach. And at this hotel, at 13 years old, you know, I was just enjoying the pool during the summer, and I became prey to a trafficking ring that was networked through that hotel.
And to add to this, that there was a point in your life where your father was actually molested you. And this whole scenario sets you up for that trafficker. Now, you start out with some woman by the name of Mary who showed you a lot of attention, and you were a very needy child, of course. You had so many unmet needs. And what really, I guess, opened my eyes was that they're pretty patient. They groom you slowly, carefully, win your confidence. And is it true that you kind of felt like you had a friend that you could trust?
Absolutely, Arthelene. You hit the nail on the head. I had this vulnerability because I did not experience safe love from my dad. So I call that a daddy hole, which a lot of girls and young boys also have. And when you have that daddy hole, you don't know the difference between safe and unsafe love from a male. Well, they didn't send a pimp to come and get me. They sent an older girl. And through her false friendship, I began trusting her, and then she introduced me to her pimp, who told me I could call him daddy.
I couldn't believe how how patient she was with you to just bring you along. And I've heard the term on TV when this is discussed, I think on maybe the Oprah show or something, the term grooming, that they know that there are certain things they have to prepare you for. What are some of those things?
Absolutely. We found in our work that the average grooming period takes about a month. And what they do is lower your guards as a child, because no 13-year-old willingly engages in prostitution. And so subtly they introduce scenarios, people, such as an older man who was her boyfriend, but he actually was a John. And so she showed him to me and told me that I would have boyfriends too one day, making this seem like a love affair, like a wonderful experience. You know, as a 13-year-old, you're young and impressionable, and you want to grow up before your time. So they introduce these types of opportunities, not to mention dressing you up, helping you put on makeup, you know, look good, lose weight, do things that any normal teenager would long for, but they have a hook at the end of it. And this is all just bait for the outcome, which is to sell you into the life of prostitution.
You know, this makes sense to me. I remember the first time that it was probably an older teenage girl in our church. Nothing at all wrong, heavens. But she took me to her home, and they fixed tacos and things. And wonderful Christian people. There was anything that was even suspect. But I remember feeling important because it wasn't my mom or my dad, but it was this young person that was, I don't know, maybe early 20s, that they would pay attention to some little kid like me. So I would say, in your case, magnify that 100 times over.
Wow. Yes, you understand it completely. I felt invisible before I met Mary, and then I was somebody someone saw me.
It seems to me that your school experience was so sketchy. How many schools did you go to?
Right. Well, I went to a school in North Miami, which was for our neighborhood. However, I got bullied, and then I went to a different middle school. And when I went to this other middle school, that's where I got recruited into trafficking. I eventually dropped out and became a full-blown drug addict once I was taken to a brothel and sold there in my community. And so I became a dropout. My mom tried to put me into a private school, a couple of private schools, but by that time I had deteriorated emotionally, so much my self-esteem and my self-worth, that I became very depressed and suicidal, and eventually just dropped out of school completely and just became involved heavily in the sex trade and drug traffic, involved with drug traffickers and sex trafficking, and just gave up on myself. So there was a number of schools that I had entered into in trying to better my life, but nothing stuck after that initial experience in middle school.
Now, very early on, for some reason, I think your mother wanted to go to a Billy Graham crusade.
Mm-hmm.
And when the invitation was given, you and your mother went forward. Your dad wouldn't.
Right, right.
And what happened to you there?
Actually, there I was the one that initiated it, because I heard this beautiful message by this older gentleman way, way down in the stands. I mean, we were so high up, my dad wanted to get as far away from the stage as he possibly physically could, but that message of hope and peace meant so much to my young heart, you know, being physically abused and by my father and involved in things that I felt like my daily life was just a war zone. And so when I was introduced to this offer of peace, I wanted that. And I asked my mom to take me down there. And she went with me, but it would be years later that she would dedicate her life to Christ after the trafficking and the drugs and dropping out, when she saw that I rededicated my life to Christ at the end of all that. And there was a total transformation. She could not deny the power of God that had existed in my life all along.
Yeah, it's so interesting because that one sentence stuck with you. Billy Graham said, "The Lord will never leave you nor forsake you."
Right.
And through all of this maze of torture, I would call it,
Yes.
that would keep coming back to you. It's that
Yeah.
powerful word.
God is faithful, Arthelene, is all I can say. I didn't deserve it.
Well, when did the trafficking? You're actually sold, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Just piece by piece, almost sold on a regular basis. At what age were you then?
Wow. Yes, I've never heard it said like that, but you're right. Parts of your soul are sold, and as the Bible talks about, when you commit sexual sin, you sin against yourself. And that's exactly what's happening, is part of yourself is being taken away. Initially, it was a sleepover at my friend's house after the first attempt in Miami Beach, where I escaped narrowly with attempted murder. I made it to my mom, and then we moved, and in the middle school, I experienced being sold to a neighborhood brothel where my friend's father was profiting off of the use of his daughter's friends. We were just 14.
Did he? That's something that struck me. Did he sell his own daughter?
He molested his daughter. And so in order to escape that, she recruited.
I thought, he's selling other girls here, but he's the father of a child that age, but total reprobate. What can you say?
Yeah. And a lot of girls who are trafficked themselves become recruiters to avoid the sexual act and the involvement.
Didn't they try to recruit you to be a recruiter?
Yes, absolutely. But I could not willingly give this sin, this pain, to somebody else. I was not willing to allow that to happen to my friends if I could avoid it. But I have been recruited on several occasions. You know, not every trafficking ring operates the same, but they do use children to recruit other children. And we actually found that the school system is one of the biggest places of recruitment.
The school system?
Yes. the public school
So
system.
who are the predators in the school system?
Well, again,
Do people just hang around, or?
you can have traffickers that prey upon young people who are not permitted in the school, but when you think about supply and demand, the school system, first of all, supply and demand, supply is where there are more children than anywhere else.
Right.
So traffickers know that, and they will send in other children who have already been inducted into the life of trafficking to recruit children. A lot of times they will use even the lure of money, some form of payment, to get them involved if they see there's a need, they're hungry, or they need a place to stay or some clothes, or they're getting in fights with their parents. They'll offer that to them in exchange for sex. And next thing you know, they're trapped into that life of sex trafficking. Sometimes it's just love. So an older boy will show love to a younger girl, but really he's recruiting her. So you have two dynamics involved.
Is the girl ever paid money?
There are occasions where girls are paid. Not every trafficking ring operates the same. I never received payment. I received drugs. I received lots of cocaine, free cocaine, but if I knew what that was in exchange for, I would have never opened that door. They don't tell you off the bat, this is what you're engaging in when they give you something.
Well, would this ever work without drugs? It seems to me that you have to have your inhibition so lowered that, that you have no fight in you.
I think you have a good point there, Arthelene. I think where you see drug trafficking, you see human trafficking. Without a doubt, they travel in the same circles. However, drugs are not always introduced primarily. I was introduced to drugs at first with the first scenario when I was in the hotel. They introduced marijuana, but my mom had told me to say no to drugs. So I said no to that and narrowly escaped with my life. The second time in my middle school, we had a sleepover, and instead of having pancakes and pool parties, we had cocaine and alcohol. My guard was lowered and lowered. Absolutely.
If you just tuned in, we're listening to a riveting story by my guest, Katariina Rosenblatt, and we've got the website up on the screen. She has a ministry now. How amazing it is that God uses these horrible situations in our life, and He can turn them and use them for His kingdom. Hope you'll write that down. This book is riveting, and it's going to be hard for you to lay it down, but I encourage you to get it and be educated on these things. Katariina, I would like to just, in a very short period of time, describe what human trafficking is. You have the head guy, what's he called, a John or a pimp? Or what?
Pimp.
He's a pimp. And he has people who know how to be a predator. And they'll see a girl like you, and I bet they can spot them 10 miles off. The need, the vulnerability.
Definitely.
They've studied the psychology for that. And so then the next in command is the recruiter, and then there's a real process. Don't forget that word grooming.
Right.
And they know how to push the right buttons and get the confidence and all. And eventually they end up as a commodity being sold to dirty old filthy scumbag predators for sex.
Yes.
That
you're
it?
right. You go, girl. Yes.
But it makes me mad. I'm sorry.
I'm glad to see you mad.
I know Jesus loves you and I love your soul, but how can you do that? All right, we're going to run out of time, and this is so interesting, but we got to get to the point where it seems to me, as I read the book, that you dropped drugs just like that. You didn't go through rehab or anything?
No. God delivered me. I had an involvement with law enforcement where my friend got busted with cocaine on her, and that scared me straight. I made a deal with God. If He didn't let me go to jail, I would quit. And so I think for some people, it can be supernatural, and you can get scared straight, and that was what happened to me.
Okay, and I can't imagine where our time's gone, but with just 3 or 4 minutes left, I want to hear about how you came finally to the altar, and you were able, God helped you leave that life behind, become new. As we mentioned, she was in and out of schools and bullied and all this, but yet she's very smart, and you got a law degree now. So,
thank you.
And it's a specialized degree for human trafficking, really around the world.
That's right. It's an LLM in intercultural human rights, and I also have a doctorate and conflict resolution. By God's glory, if there is hope for
wonderful.
me, there's hope for
It's
anyone.
just wonderful, yeah. And she has been married, and you have 2 children. But at what point did you give it to the Lord until He eventually led you into the ministry you have today, which is on the screen? I hope you'll write that website down. All of these ministries could use some help, and let me tell you, the devil's paying the highest prices he's got for this kind of a hell hole. It's exactly what it is, and no one could understand it like you.
Thank you.
But at what point was it when you said, Jesus, I know you've been there, and I'm here now?
He was so faithful through so many trafficking situations, but it was the last one when I found myself at 15 years old being raped on the bed of a drug dealer in Miami, that God spoke to my heart, I have a plan for your life, and this isn't it. And at that moment, the John who purchased the sex became very violent, and he got sick, and he could not finish, and he threw me downstairs and told the pimp, this whore you gave me is cursed. But I knew God had intervened, and I would only find out the next day that this man had AIDS, and he was infecting all the girls in our group with this AIDS disease. And it wasn't like today that there's medication. This was 20 years ago, and that was a death sentence. And I knew they were willing to sell me to someone with AIDS, and God saved me and protected me, and I never got sick. And at that moment, I turned my life around and went back to God and thanked Him for saving me. But it would still take becoming a pregnant teen from the son of a Colombian drug dealer before I actually surrendered fully. And at 18 years old, when my first child was born, I went back to church to raise this child to love God and know God. And it was there I asked God to take my life back. I was tired of controlling it and running from the pain. And He took me out of all of those terrible situations, and I rededicated my life to Him at 18, and I never turned back. And from that moment on, He had taken me to get my GED, to now my PhD, and to start a ministry called There Is Hope for Me.
There is hope. There's hope for everybody. I tell you, I've said it so many times, the things we present to you around the world, only the gospel changes them.
Yes.
That's all. I mean, you can put all the Band-Aids on you want, but only the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ can take a person and make them brand new. Thanks for bringing your story.
Thank you.
I hope you'll follow up with that website, friends, and I do hope you'll join me next time. Please remember, there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.